At the Lucasfilm Publishing panel this past Friday at San Diego Comic-Con, it was announced that we'll finally be getting the origin story for Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren in a new comic to be released later this year. We know very few details at this point, but I wanted to discuss what we do know, and even more importantly, what exactly we could see from an early story revolving around Kylo and the Knights of Ren. Starting with what we do know, the comic series is called Star Wars: The Rise of Kylo Ren, and it's a 4-issue miniseries that'll be released in December. Thanks to a tweet from Charles Soule, who'll be writing the 4 issues, we know that it'll be released prior to Episode 9. So with the Episode 9 release being December 20th, I'm anticipating an early December launch for the comic series. And this is really all we definitively know, so official details are still sparse at this point. As far as my initial thoughts, just based on this early information, I'm very happy to see Charles Soule is writing the series. He was the writer of the 2017 Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, and 2015 Lando comics, which I consider to be my favorite of the canon Star Wars comics. Not to mention, he seems to be extremely excited about the project, tweeting that this will be a story about Kylo and the Knights of Ren that everyone's been dying to see, so it's difficult not to set my expectations high for this already. 4 issues though, does seem like it's a little short. Even a 5-issue run like the Mace Jedi of the Republic series or 2017 Darth Maul series would have been nice to sneak in a bit more lore and story, but it does suggest they wanted to give some kind of background and increase fan awareness for these characters going into Episode 9, which I hope signals the Knights of Ren do play an important role in the film. Because the series is entitled The Rise of Kylo Ren, I'm expecting it to focus more on Ben Solo's fall to joining Snoke and becoming Kylo Ren, even though I'd like to see more focus on the Knights of Ren. But Soule's tweet does give me hope that the Knights of Ren will also get their due over the 4 issues as well. Considering what we could see from the series, we do already know a bit about Kylo's rise within the canon lore, and there are 2 elements that I would love to see develop more in the comic. The first would be Ben Solo's first understanding that his grandfather was Darth Vader and the repercussions this had on him. Thanks to the novel Bloodline, we know that Han and Leia intentionally kept Vader's true identity hidden from their son, planning to tell him later as he got older. But even by the time Ben went to train with Luke, he still didn't know the truth, and this was something that caused Leia tremendous concern. Knowing that the truth of Vader's identity as her father shattered her, she could only imagine what it would do to Ben, who she felt was already struggling with his pull between the light and dark. In fact, because she didn't quite understand the nature of it fully, she hoped Luke would explain Anakin's redemption, what she considered to be the most important aspect to the story. Of course, thanks to Bloodline, we know that Leia wasn't the one who told Ben the truth first. The secret was revealed galaxy-wide, suggesting Ben found out as the galaxy did, which had to have caused him to feel the wrath of the galaxy pointed at him through his connection to Vader, but also betrayal that his family didn't tell him the truth. Either way, I think having a scene included where Ben learns that Vader was his grandfather, especially with Luke trying to explain it and help his nephew through it, would be a great addition for a story like this. A second element that I would consider necessary for the rise of Kylo Ren would be Snoke's involvement in Ben's fall. Through The Last Jedi novelization, we know that it was Snoke who directly intervened to facilitate Ben's fall to the dark side. The somewhat confusing, though interesting aspect to it all is that Snoke is said to have used his knowledge of the Force to ensnare Ben to confuse and hinder Luke's path in creating a new Jedi Order, which would have endangered Snoke's plans for the galaxy. Without question, Snoke wanted to gain the power Ben had through his lineage as a Skywalker, but the story of Kylo Ren's rise is also the story of Luke's fall, not just literally as it played out in episodes 7 and 8, but also in the background lore established through Snoke's motivations. Again, I think Snoke's involvement here is a must, and if we can get scenes with depictions of both Ben and Luke during this period, I think the rise of Kylo Ren will be much more powerful going into episode 9. Finally, what might we be able to expect from the Knights of Ren? This is where it gets interesting, and I think the long-term importance of the series comes down to what we learn about the Knights, particularly their origins. On the one hand, there are only 4 issues, but at the same time, if Charles Soule could integrate Lord Mommon's entire backstory flawlessly into a single issue in the Fortress Vader arc of the Vader comic, I'm hoping we can get at least a single issue doing the same for the Knights of Ren. In terms of what we might see, there's been some interesting speculation for a while now that the origins of the Knights of Ren began with a group called the Acolytes of the Beyond, seen in the Aftermath Empire's End novel. Active in the Galactic Civil War era, the Acolytes were dark side fanatics and Sith cultists who really carried the dark side forward as the Sith were destroyed at the Battle of Endor. They weren't Force sensitive, but they were collectors of Sith and dark side lore, including lightsabers and armor. In fact, one of the Acolytes named Kaiza was gifted a metallic mask of a brutal ancient Sith named Exum Panshard. It's the connections of these types of masks, and their affinity for the Sith and Darkseid, as well as their hatred of the New Republic, making them natural allies with Kylo in the First Order, that has led many to see the Acolytes as the natural origins of the Knights of Ren, and expanding upon this potential evolution within the comic would be very interesting. Now of course, this is just speculation at this point. The Knights of Ren could be an entirely different organization with no connection to the Acolytes of the Beyond. They merely may have been formed at the same time Ben Solo became Kylo Ren. But if they do have origins prior to Kylo's rise or connections to the Acolytes, I do hope that the comic gives us as much of their backstory as possible. Like many, I believe the Knights of Ren have been severely underutilized at this point, so as much as possible would be welcomed. But those are just my early thoughts on the newly revealed comic, The Rise of Kylo Ren. I'm much more interested in what you think, so don't hesitate to let me know your initial reaction and what you're hoping to see the most within the new comic series. Thank you for watching everyone, and as always, may the Force be with you.